Good morning and welcome to another Memphis Monday 193. Today we're going to be making a handle for this hammerhead. It's a vintage Keystone Drop Forged hammerhead, early to mid 20th century. It has value. I saw one advertised for about $9 on eBay, so not real valuable, but definitely vintage. The Keystone Forging Company was established in 1893, and they're still in operation in Pennsylvania, so that's a little trivia. But this isn't a trivia show. This is about making handles. So let's knock off the chit chat and get to work. This is our old broken hammer. It's about 12.5 inches from the top of the hammer to the bottom. This looks like the original handle, but it's too badly damaged to fix. This is a store-bought handle, but to me that store-bought handle is just way too small. We want to make something that is awesome. We're going to make our handle out of this piece of seasoned ash. Traditionally, hammer handles are made out of ash or hickory, but hammer handles have been made out of just about every kind of wood there is. It depends on what kind of wood. One of the preferred kinds of wood was hard maple. The kind of wood is not as important as the grain. Here we got a real good shot of the grain. You'll notice that the grain goes all the way through. It's straight through. One of the ways to tell if your grain goes all the way through, and what I've done is I've taken a pencil and kind of darkened up the grain here, but you can see that it cuts straight through the piece. And if I flip it over here, it's the same situation. For my ash handle, I'm taking the original. I'm going to make my handle bigger than this, but this is the original handle, and I figure I need that triangle of wood right there all the way through. Now I've kind of drawn the basic shape I want the handle in this dimension anyway, so I'm going to cut away the excess. Well, you saw me nailing these wedges back in place that I just cut out, and the reason is we cut our handle out in that dimension, but now we need to cut our handle out in this direction here. Now, both our old handle and this store-bought handle are oval shaped, and that's one way to do a handle. But I like the kind of squared off edges to give the handle kind of a feel. Let me show you. Now the current profile of the end of the handle there is a rectangle. So let's draw a rectangle here. And what we're going to do, right now we got 4 sides, we're going to cut off the corners and make it 8-sided all the way around. That gives the handle a real nice feel. Okay, now my handle is a little big yet, but remember, you can always make something smaller. You can't make it bigger. So what I'm going to do is go along these edges and turn this thing into an octagon instead of a triangle. Okay, now I got the basic shape for my hammer handle. I may cut it off a little bit down here because this looks kind of hokey. But now what I got to do is trim it down on this end into a square. Into a square that looks like that. Now what I'll do is I'll just keep working with it on the sander and keep testing it, fitting it in, and walk it in until it just fits through that square or that triangle opening there. Now real handle makers back in the day, and even now, don't use all this. They use files and draw knives and chisels to do this. I got the handle head on there. I don't like the look of it. The handle's way out of proportion to the hammerhead. I'm going to start by shortening it a little bit and then maybe narrowing it. My idea of having a big galactic handle may not be such a smart idea after all. I can get the rest of the shaping done with a random orbit. I got 80 grit paper in there. I'm leaving the hammerhead in there so I can keep checking the look of it. I think the look of it has improved quite a bit by cutting that end off. Narrowed it some here in the center. Let's give it a try. I think this is kind of interesting. You know, I was going to make the giant Mau hammer. It didn't look right, and I kept cutting it back and cutting it back. And now I basically reproduced the original handle, except for making it, a little bit longer at the end. This is always a scary part for me, putting this notch in here, because one wrong move and you're starting over. This is how you're supposed to pound these hammerheads on. Get on something solid like this mandrel here and pound it against the bottom, and that'll force the head down just right. I'll put a little dab of glue on my wedge. Some guys do, some guys don't. But I'm gonna. What I'm doing now is putting this metal wedge in. What happens, this is an old hammer I did a couple of years ago. The wooden wedge goes this way, and then the metal wedge goes across it. Sometimes they put in two at an angle. Now when you put these metal wedges in, any wedges in, the handle's got to be on a good hard surface, a heavy surface like concrete floor, rock. In this case I'm using a mandrel. If you just put this up on a workbench and try to drill that in, you'll get a lot of bounce back. Well, not many guarantees in life, but one guarantee for sure, this hammerhead's not coming off here. Well, there's our hammer handle for Memphis Monday 193. I put a little Danish oil on it, and once that dries, I'll buff it out a little bit and then put several coats of boiled linseed oil on it. But overall, pretty satisfied. I think it's kind of funny that we ended up basically reproducing the old handle, except putting this knob on the end. But I never claimed to know more about making handles than the Keystone Forging Company. Well, that'll do it for another Memphis Monday 193. Today we made this nice little handle for this Keystone Drop Forged hammer, probably a 1940s edition. We were going to make a big old galactic handle for it, but it didn't look right, so we ended up basically reproducing the size of the old handle, only we put an octagonal shape to the handle instead of a oval. But anyway, like and favorite and comment and all the stuff you do on the internet. Most important, make sure you're back here next week for another exciting Memphis Monday. Thanks for playing along.